The fluorescent lights of Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport buzz overhead as I stand alone at Gate A7, watching my family's plane taxi down the runway. My duffel bag sits at my feet, packed with clothes I'll never wear on white sand beaches. The departure board flickers, updating their flight status to departed while my bank account shows a balance of $47.83, $5,000 poorer, zero family richer. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. I press my palm against the cool glass window, watching that metal tube carry my parents, my brother Tyler, and my sister Madison toward turquoise waters and unlimited mojitos in Turks and Caicos. The same vacation I just paid for with every penny I'd saved from 2 years of working double shifts at Target and tutoring rich kids in calculus. The same vacation I'm now watching disappear into the Arizona desert sky without me. My phone buzzes with a text from Madison, a selfie of her already sipping champagne in first class, Tyler grinning beside her with his MBA graduate smugness, mom and dad toasting with crystal flutes. The caption reads, "Thanks for the upgrade money, sis. The extra legroom is amazing. See you in a week." The upgrade money. That's what my $5,000 became. Not my seat, not my inclusion, just their comfort while I stand here like an idiot, clutching a boarding pass that was apparently never meant to be used. The gate agent looks at me with pity, probably wondering why this 19-year-old girl is crying in front of the windows at an empty gate. 3 hours earlier, I'd been rushing through these same terminal doors, dragging my hastily packed bag and checking my phone obsessively. The text from Dad had been urgent, flight delayed 2 hours, meet us at gate, emergency. I'd sprinted from my dorm at Arizona State University, where I'd been cramming for my finance midterm, because family emergencies apparently trumped everything else in the Mitchell household. Except when I arrived at the gate, breathless and sweating in the Phoenix heat I'd run through, there was no emergency. Just my family sitting calmly in the waiting area, Tyler scrolling through his phone while Madison painted her nails a shade called Turks and Caicos turquoise. How perfectly themed. Emma. Perfect timing, Mom had said without looking up from her resort confirmation email. We need to discuss the seating arrangements. That should have been my first warning. In the Mitchell family, discussions were really just announcements, dressed up to sound democratic, like when they discussed Madison needing a new MacBook for her sophomore year of high school, or when they discussed Tyler needing help with his MBA program expenses. Somehow these discussions always ended with everyone agreeing that Emma would figure out a way to contribute. The airline had a mix-up with our reservations. Dad explained, his voice carrying that tone he used when delivering bad news to his corporate team. They could only guarantee 4 seats together in coach, or we could all upgrade to first class for an additional $5,000. I'd stared at him, waiting for the punchline, or the part where he explained how this affected me. Okay, so what's the emergency? Well, you have your savings account, Linda had said, as if this was the most logical thing in the world. It makes sense for you to cover the upgrade cost. Think of it as your contribution to the family vacation. My contribution to a vacation I was already attending on their invitation. A vacation they'd planned, booked and organized without consulting me about dates, destination or budget. A vacation where I'd be sleeping on a pull-out couch in their suite while Tyler and Madison got their own rooms. I don't understand, I'd said, my brain struggling to process what they were asking. You want me to pay $5,000 to upgrade seats on a vacation you planned? It's not that expensive when you think about it as an investment in family time. Tyler had chimed in, not looking up from his phone where he was probably calculating his first-year Goldman Sachs bonus. Besides, you've been saving up all that money from your little jobs. What else are you going to spend it on? My little jobs. The Target shifts where I folded clothes and dealt with angry customers for $9 an hour. The tutoring sessions where I helped entitled high schoolers understand concepts that came naturally to me, charging $30 an hour because their parents could afford it and I needed every penny. The weekend gig cleaning offices downtown because janitorial work paid better than retail, and I wasn't too proud to empty trash cans if it meant making rent. I'm saving for a car, I'd said weekly, and textbooks, and maybe not living on ramen noodles for the rest of college. Madison had actually laughed. Emma, you're so dramatic. It's just money. You can make more money. When will we have another chance for a family vacation like this? When will we have another chance? As if this was some once-in-a-lifetime opportunity rather than the third exotic vacation they'd taken in 2 years. As if I'd been included in the planning of any of those trips rather than informed about them after the fact. The flight board's in 40 minutes, Dad had said, checking his Rolex. We need to decide now if we're upgrading or not. The way he'd said we had been particularly cruel, because there was no we in this decision. There was them, sitting in their expensive clothes with their expensive luggage, and there was me, wearing my Target uniform because I'd come straight from my shift. There was them, with their joint checking accounts and credit cards, and there was me, with my carefully hoarded savings account that represented 2 years of sacrifice and planning. I can't afford $5,000, I'd said, hating how small my voice sounded in the busy terminal. You have more than that in your account. Mom had replied, and something cold had settled in my stomach. How did she know how much money I had saved? When had she been looking at my bank statements? I have about $6,000 total, I'd admitted, but that's supposed to last me through the rest of college. That's my emergency fund. This is a family emergency, Dad had said firmly. Sometimes we all have to make sacrifices for the greater good. This vacation is important for family bonding, especially with Tyler starting his new job soon. He'll be so busy with Goldman Sachs that we might not get another chance like this. Everything always came back to Tyler and his achievements. Tyler and his MBA. Tyler and his job offer. Tyler and his bright future that we all needed to support and celebrate. Meanwhile, I was supposed to be grateful for the opportunity to pay for the privilege of watching them enjoy the success I was helping fund. What if I don't pay? I'd asked, though I already knew the answer. The silence had stretched between us like a chasm. Other families bustled around us, excited for their own vacations, carrying beach bags and talking about snorkeling plans. Normal families who didn't extort their college-age daughters for upgrade fees. Well, then we'd have to stay and coach. Mom had said carefully. All cramped together. Tyler's so tall his knees would be pressed against the seat in front of him for 6 hours. Madison gets carsick. You know how she is with small spaces. And your father's...
Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story.
Back problems. The guilt trip had been masterful, really. Paint me as the selfish daughter who would force her successful brother to suffer, her delicate sister to be uncomfortable, her hard-working father to be in pain, all because I wasn't willing to part with money I'd earned through months of early mornings and late nights. Plus, Madison had added, examining her nails. If we're stuck in coach, there won't be room for all the luggage anyway. Someone would probably have to stay behind to deal with the baggage issues. Someone, not someone random. Someone specific. Someone whose contribution would be appreciated but whose presence wasn't actually necessary. I'd looked at their faces, searching for any sign that this was a joke or a test or a terrible misunderstanding. But Tyler was already pulling out his phone to probably post about his upcoming vacation on LinkedIn. Madison was taking selfies with her passport. Mom and Dad were discussing dinner reservations at the resort, as if the matter was already settled. Fine, I'd said, the word tasting like copper in my mouth. I'll transfer the money. The relief on their faces had been immediate and nauseating. Not relief that we'd found a solution, but relief that their plan had worked. That Emma, reliable Emma, responsible Emma, would once again solve their problems with her carefully saved money. I'd opened my banking app with trembling fingers, watching my account balance drop from $6,247 to $1,247, with a few taps on the screen, 2 years of work disappearing in seconds. The car I'd been planning to buy, gone. The textbook budget I'd carefully calculated, slashed. The security I'd built for myself, handed over to people who saw my savings as their emergency fund. "You're the best, Em," Tyler had said, ruffling my hair like I was still a kid instead of a 19-year-old college student who just made a financial sacrifice he'd never consider making. "This is going to be such an amazing trip." But as I'd watched them gather their things and head toward the gate, chatting excitedly about spa treatments and excursions, a horrible realization had begun creeping up my spine. They weren't acting like people who were grateful for my sacrifice. They were acting like people who just solved a minor inconvenience. "Wait," I'd called after them. "What about my boarding pass?" Mom had turned back with a smile that didn't reach her eyes.
Oh.
"Honey, the upgrade was only for 4 seats. The original booking was for 5. But the first-class cabin only had 4 seats available together. I'm sure you understand." I hadn't understood. I'd stood there in the middle of the terminal, my brain scrambling to process what she'd just said. "So where am I sitting?" "Well, that's the thing," Dad had said, avoiding my eyes.
Oh!
With the upgrade they had to cancel the 5th seat to make the booking work. "But don't worry, we called the resort and they'll give you a full refund on your portion." My portion. The portion I'd never paid for because they'd invited me on this vacation. The portion that was apparently now my problem to figure out. "You're leaving me here." The words had come out as a whisper, but they might as well have been screamed. Several other travelers had turned to look, probably wondering why this family was having a breakdown in the middle of the airport. "It's just this once," Madison had said, already walking toward the gate. "You'll be fine. You're always fine." And that had been it. No apology. No acknowledgement that they'd just taken my money and abandoned me. No recognition that what they'd done was cruel and manipulative and wrong. Just the assumption that Emma would be fine, because Emma was always fine, because Emma had to be fine for everyone else to be okay. Tyler had actually waved goodbye as they'd boarded, like this was a normal farewell instead of a betrayal that would change everything between us forever. Now I'm standing here, watching their plane disappear into the endless Arizona sky.
Oh.
And I'm finally understanding what my place in this family really is. I'm not the daughter.
Hey.
I'm not the sister. I'm the bank account with legs. I'm the emergency fund that walks and talks, and occasionally needs to be fed. My phone rings, startling me out of my thoughts. It's Grandma Helen, my mom's mother. The only person in our extended family who ever asks how I'm doing instead of how much I'm making. "Emma, sweetheart, how was your flight? Did you make it to the resort okay?" For a moment, I can't speak. How do I explain that I'm standing in an airport in Phoenix, $5,000 poorer, and completely alone, because my own family decided I was more valuable as a funding source than as a travel companion? "Grandma," I finally manage, my voice cracking on the word. "I need help." The silence on the other end stretches for a moment before she speaks again. And when she does, her voice is sharp with concern. "Emma, what happened? Where are you?" So I tell her. I tell her about the emergency text that wasn't an emergency. I tell her about the upgrade fee and the missing seat and the casual way they'd waved goodbye. I tell her about standing here alone, while they sip champagne somewhere over the Gulf of Mexico. The silence that follows is different from before.
Hey.
It's not confused or concerned. It's furious. "Those absolute," she starts. then catches herself. Emma, honey, stay right where you are. Uncle Jake is coming to get you. You don't have to. We absolutely do have to, she interrupts. And there's steel in her voice that I've never heard before. What they did isn't just wrong, Emma. It's cruel, and it ends today. 20 minutes later, I see Uncle Jake's pickup truck pulling up to the curb outside baggage claim. He's my mom's younger brother, the one who never went to college but built his own construction company from nothing. The one my parents always treat like the family disappointment because he works with his hands instead of pushing papers in an office. He doesn't say anything when I climb into the passenger seat with my duffel bag and my red eyes. He just hands me a bottle of water and a pack of tissues and starts driving toward Grandma Helen's house. You want to talk about it? He asks after we've been driving for a few minutes. They took my money and left me at the airport, I say, the words coming out flat and emotionless because I still can't quite believe they're true. Jake's hands tighten on the steering wheel. How much money? $5,000. Everything I'd saved for a car and textbooks and everything. He doesn't say anything for a long moment, just stares ahead at the road like he's calculating something in his head. Finally he speaks again. You know, I've been looking for someone to help with the business side of my company. Someone smart with numbers who understands how to deal with difficult people. Someone I can trust. I look at him sideways, not sure where he's going with this. It would be part-time, work around your school schedule, but it pays a lot better than retail, and it comes with benefits, health insurance, paid time off, and a company truck when you need it. Uncle Jake, I can't ask you to. You're not asking, he interrupts. I'm offering. There's a difference. And Emma. He glances at me with serious eyes. What happened today? That's not normal. That's not how families treat each other. Don't let them convince you it is. As we pull into Grandma Helen's driveway, I see her standing on the front porch with her arms crossed, looking like she's ready to fight someone. When she sees me get out of the truck with my sad little duffel bag, her face softens into the kind of expression I haven't seen from my own mother in years. Come here, baby girl, she says, opening her arms wide. And for the first time in hours, I let myself cry, really cry. Not the quiet, controlled tears I'd been holding back in the airport, but the deep, ugly sobs of someone who's just realized that the people who were supposed to love her most have been using her instead. It's going to be okay. Grandma Helen whispers into my hair as she holds me on her front porch. We're going to figure this out together. But Emma, I pull back to look at her. Don't you ever let them treat you like that again. Do you hear me? Never again. As I nod through my tears, something shifts inside me. A door closing on the person I used to be, the one who believed that love meant sacrifice and family meant giving until it hurt. And somewhere in the space that door used to occupy, something new begins to grow, something that looks a lot like self-respect, something that feels a lot like strength, something that whispers for the first time in my life, that maybe I deserve better than this. The sun is setting over the Phoenix Mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that would make a beautiful vacation photo. But I'm not on vacation. I'm standing in my grandmother's driveway, broke and abandoned and absolutely furious. And somehow, for the first time in years, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Parts 2. 5. The cruel context through evidence gathering. The next morning I wake up in Grandma Helen's spare bedroom to the sound of my phone buzzing relentlessly on the nightstand. 17 missed calls from Mom, 12 from Dad, and a string of increasingly frantic text messages that paint a very different picture from the casual goodbye they'd given me at the airport yesterday. Emma, we tried calling you last night. Is everything okay? Your father is worried sick. Please call us back. The resort is asking about your arrival. When is your connecting flight? Emma, this isn't funny anymore. Call us immediately. I stare at the messages, feeling something cold and bitter spreading through my chest. They actually thought I would find another way to get there. They actually believed I would somehow magic up another $5,000 and book myself a last-minute flight to join them after they'd abandoned me at Sky Harbor. The audacity is breathtaking. My phone rings again. Mom's contact photo fills the screen. A family portrait from last Christmas where we're all wearing matching sweaters and fake smiles. I almost don't answer, but something perverse in me wants to hear how she'll try to spin this. Emma, thank God, she says before I can even speak. We've been trying to reach you for hours. What happened? Did you miss your connecting flight? The question hits me like a physical blow. She's really going to pretend that there was supposed to be a connecting flight. She's going to act like yesterday was some kind of misunderstanding instead of a calculated betrayal. There was no connecting flight, Mom, I say, my voice deadly calm. You know that. You were there when you told me there was no seat for me. A pause. I can hear resort sounds in the background, tropical music and the clink of glasses and people laughing. The sounds of the vacation I paid for but will never experience. Honey, I think there was some confusion, she says carefully. We always plan for you to take a later flight, remember? We discussed it at dinner last week. We absolutely did not discuss it at dinner last week. Last week's dinner conversation had been entirely focused on Tyler's job offer and Madison's need for new cheerleading shoes. I would remember if anyone had mentioned me taking a separate flight, because I would have asked why and how and with what money. Mom, stop lying, I say, surprising myself with the directness. You took my $5,000 for seat upgrades and then told me there was no room for me. I was standing right there. Tyler waved goodbye. Another pause, longer this time. When she speaks again, her voice has shifted into what I think of as her realtor tone, the one she uses when she's trying to convince clients that a house with foundation problems is actually charming and rustic. Emma, I think you're misremembering what happened. We would never leave you behind intentionally. You're our daughter. The word daughter feels like a knife twisting in my chest. If I'm their daughter, why am I sitting in my grandmother's spare bedroom instead of lounging by a pool in Turks and Caicos? If I'm their daughter, why did they take my money and leave me stranded? Then explain why I'm in Phoenix and you're in the Caribbean, I say. Well, obviously there was a miscommunication somewhere, Mom says, and I can practically hear her brain working to construct a narrative that makes them the victims instead of the perpetrators. These things happen with travel, but you could still join us. There are flights every day. Just book something and we'll sort out the cost later. Just book something. As if I have another $5,000 lying around. As if airline tickets to tropical islands are impulse purchases for college students who work retail jobs. As if the financial devastation they caused yesterday is just a minor inconvenience that can be solved by throwing more money at the problem. With what money? I ask. You took everything I had saved. Don't be so dramatic, Emma. You're always so dramatic about money. It's just money. You can make more. There it is. The casual dismissal that sums up everything wrong with how my family sees me. Just money. Easy for her to say when she's never worked a day in her life for $9 an hour, never chosen between textbooks and groceries, never stayed up until midnight doing homework because she had to work a double shift to make rent. I have to go, I say, not trusting myself to continue this conversation without saying something I can't take back. Emma, don't hang up. We need to figure this out. Your father wants to talk to you. But I'm already ending the call, my hands shaking with anger and hurt and something that feels dangerously close to hatred. I turn off my phone and bury it under the spare pillows, trying to block out the sound of their voices even though the line has gone dead. Grandma Helen appears in the doorway with a cup of coffee and a plate of homemade biscuits, her gray hair still in curlers and her face set in the kind of expression that suggests she's been listening to my side of the phone conversation. They called the house phone too, she says without preamble. 3 times. I let it go to voicemail. She hands me the coffee and sits on the edge of the bed, her weight making the old mattress dip. For a moment we just sit in silence, me clutching the warm mug like a lifeline, and her studying my face with the kind of careful attention that makes me feel seen in a way I haven't felt in years. You want to hear something interesting, she finally says. Your mother called me last week to ask if I thought you'd be willing to help with vacation expenses. Said the resort was more expensive than they'd planned and they might need to ask you to chip in. The coffee turns bitter in my mouth. They'd planned this. This wasn't a last-minute emergency or a booking mix-up or any of the excuses they'd thrown at me yesterday. They'd actually planned to take my money and leave me behind. She asked you what you thought I'd say. I managed to ask. She did. And I told her that asking a college student to pay for a family vacation she couldn't afford was inappropriate and unfair. Grandma Helen's voice carries an edge I've never heard before. I told her that if they couldn't afford to take all their children, they shouldn't be taking any of them. What did she say? She said you were different, more responsible, more mature, that you'd understand it was for the good of the family. Grandma Helen shakes her head. I should have called you then, should have warned you what they were planning. The pieces fall into place with horrible clarity. The emergency text wasn't because of a flight delay, it was because they needed to execute their plan at the last possible moment, when I wouldn't have time to think or argue or find an alternative. The upgrade story wasn't a sudden opportunity, it was a carefully constructed lie designed to make me feel like I was contributing to family happiness instead of being extorted by people who were supposed to love me. They've been planning this for weeks, I say, the realization hitting me like a physical blow. At least, Grandma Helen agrees. Probably longer. Your Uncle Jake thinks they've been looking at you as their personal ATM for months now, maybe years. The thought makes me want to throw up. How many times have they asked me for money over the past 2 years? How many times have I handed over my carefully saved dollars for Tyler's graduation expenses or Madison's cheerleading fees or their kitchen renovation? How many times have I believed their stories about temporary shortfalls and family emergencies when what they really meant was Emma's too naive to say no? My phone starts buzzing again under the pillows and I can hear the muffled sound of incoming texts. They're not going to give up easily, I realize. They're going to keep calling and texting and showing up at Grandma Helen's house until I agree to pretend yesterday didn't happen. Until I agree to play along with whatever story they've constructed to explain away their cruelty. I can't go back there, I say, the words coming out small and scared. I can't go back to their house and pretend everything is normal. Who said anything about going back? Grandma Helen asks. You've got a place here as long as you need it. And Jake meant what he said about the job. He's been trying to find someone trustworthy to help with the administrative side of his business for months. The idea of staying here, of building something separate from my family's expectations and demands, feels both terrifying and liberating. I've never lived anywhere but their house or my dorm room. I've never made decisions without considering how they'll affect the family budget or the family image or the family dynamics. What if they cut me off completely? I ask. What if they stop paying for college? Then we'll figure something else out, Grandma Helen says firmly. There are scholarships and financial aid and work-study programs. You're smart, Emma. You're resourceful. You don't need them as much as they've convinced you that you do. Later that afternoon, Uncle Jake arrives with a truck full of tools and a determined expression. He's been doing construction work since he was 18, building his business from a single pickup truck to a company that employs 12 people and handles projects all over the Phoenix metro area. He's also the only person in my extended family who's never asked me for money or assumed I'd be available to solve their problems. Ready to see what real work looks like? He asks, gesturing toward the truck. I follow him outside, grateful for anything that will keep my hands busy and my mind off the 23 missed calls now showing on my phone. He explains that he's renovating the kitchen in a house in Scottsdale not far from where my family lives, and he could use an extra pair of hands to help with measurements and material organization. The work is physical and demanding, requiring focus and precision that leaves no room for dwelling on yesterday's betrayal. I spend the afternoon learning to read blueprints, calculating square footage for tile installation, and organizing supplies in the back of his truck. It's the kind of work my parents would probably consider beneath their college-educated daughter. But there's something deeply satisfying about creating something tangible and useful with my hands. You're good at this, Jake says as we load up the truck at the end of the day. You've got an eye for detail and you're not afraid to ask questions when you don't understand something. That's rarer than you might think. The compliment hits differently than the praise I'm used to receiving from teachers or professors.
This isn't about grades or test scores or academic achievements that might look good on a resume. This is about practical skills and real-world problem solving and the kind of work that actually makes a difference in people's lives. On the drive back to Grandma Helen's house, my phone rings again. This time it's Tyler, probably calling from some beachside bar where drinks cost more than I make in a day. "What's up, Em?" he says when I answer, his voice carrying that fake casual tone he uses when he wants something. "Mom said you missed your flight yesterday." "That sucks. I missed my flight, not we left you at
the airport after taking your money. Not we abandoned you without a second thought. I missed my flight, like it was my fault, like I was too irresponsible to manage basic travel logistics. I didn't miss anything, Tyler. I say. You know exactly what happened. Come on, don't be like that. Look, I know you're probably bummed about missing the vacation, but you could still make it work. There's a red-eye tonight that gets in tomorrow morning. You'd only miss one day." The fact that he's looked up flights tells me this conversation was planned. They're all sitting around some resort pool right now, strategizing about how to get me to join them so they can pretend yesterday didn't happen, so they can go back to their lives without the uncomfortable knowledge that they've crossed a line they can't uncross. "With what money, Tyler?" I ask. "Well, that's the thing. The flight's only like $800. Dad said he'd cover it if you can't afford it right now." $800. Only $800. For someone who just started a job at Goldman Sachs, $800 probably is pocket change. For someone who just lost their entire savings account to fund his vacation upgrade, $800 might as well be $8 million. "And where would I stay?" I ask. "You said all the rooms were booked?" "Oh, we figured that out. Madison doesn't mind sharing her bed. You know how she is? She's a total space hog anyway, but there's definitely room for two." I imagine myself squeezed into a resort bed with my 16-year-old sister, listening to her complain about having to share space while she posts Instagram stories about the vacation I paid for. I imagine sitting by the pool, watching them enjoy expensive drinks and spa treatments, while I calculate how many hours I'll need to work to rebuild my savings account. I imagine pretending to be grateful for their generosity while they pat themselves on the back for including me in their fun. "No," I say, the word coming out stronger than I expected. "No what? No, I'm not coming. No, I'm not borrowing more money I can't afford to pay back. No, I'm not going to pretend yesterday didn't happen." Silence on the other end. I can hear resort sounds again, but this time they seem mocking instead of enticing. The sounds of a life I'll never be able to afford on my own, and apparently don't deserve to share in. "Emma, come on," Tyler says finally. "Don't make this into a bigger deal than it is. Shit happens. Travel gets complicated, but we're family. We work it out. Family doesn't abandon each other at airports." I say. "Nobody abandoned you. There was a miscommunication." "There was no miscommunication, Tyler. You waved goodbye. You knew exactly what was happening." Another pause. When he speaks again, his voice has lost its fake casualness and taken on the edge of annoyance that appears whenever someone challenges the Mitchell family narrative. "Look, I don't know what story you've convinced yourself of, but you're being ridiculous. Mom and Dad have done everything for you. They've paid for your college, given you a place to live, supported you through everything. The least you can do is be a little flexible when family plans get complicated. Everything they've done for me, the college tuition that comes with constant reminders about how expensive it is and how grateful I should be. The place to live that includes a chore list longer than most people's job descriptions. The support that always seems to come with strings attached and expectations that I'll prioritize their needs over my own. They didn't pay for college," I say quietly. "I have academic scholarships and student loans. They co-signed the loans, but I'm the one who'll be paying them back for the next 20 years. "Same difference," Tyler says dismissively. "It's not the same difference at all." "Whatever, Emma. Call me when you're done being dramatic. This whole victim thing isn't a good look on you." The line goes dead, and I stare at my phone in the growing darkness of Uncle Jake's truck. Victim thing? As if acknowledging mistreatment is somehow worse than the actual mistreatment. As if standing up for myself makes me the problem, instead of the person who finally recognized there was a problem to begin with. We pull into Grandma Helen's driveway just as the streetlights are coming on. Through the kitchen window, I can see her moving around, probably making dinner, and pretending she isn't worried about how this whole situation is going to play out. She's been caught in the middle of family drama before, I realize. She's probably spent years watching my parents make decisions that prioritize image over substance, money over relationships, convenience over kindness. "You okay?" Jake asks. Noticing my silence, "Tyler called," I say. "He thinks I should fly out tonight. Said Dad would pay for the ticket." Jake's hands tighten on the steering wheel. And I told him no." "Good," he says simply. "That's the first smart decision you've made in this whole mess." As we sit in the driveway, I think about the photos they're probably taking right now. Sunset cocktails on the beach. Fancy dinners at restaurants where the appetizers cost more than my textbooks. Family selfies where everyone looks happy and relaxed and perfectly put together. They'll post these photos on social media, I realize. They'll share them with friends and coworkers, and extended family members who don't know the real story. They'll get comments about what a beautiful family they are, and how lucky everyone is to have such amazing experiences together. And in a few days, when people ask me about the vacation, what will I say? Will I tell them the truth about being abandoned at the airport after my family took my life savings? Will I explain that the upgrade money they used for extra legroom came from my Target paychecks and tutoring sessions? Or will I smile and say it was wonderful, because admitting the truth means admitting that the people who are supposed to love me most see me as nothing more than a walking ATM? The kitchen window glows warm and yellow in the darkness, and I can see Grandma Helen setting the table for 3. Not 4, like she would if she expected me to go crawling back to my family. Not 2, like she would if she thought this was temporary. 3, like she's already decided that I belong here, in this house where people ask how my day was instead of how much money I can contribute to their problems. "Come on," Jake says, opening his truck door. "Mom's making her famous pot roast, and I want to show you some of the business documents I mentioned. If you're serious about working with me, there's a lot you'll need to learn about construction contracts and client management." As I follow him toward the house, my phone buzzes one more time. Another message from my family, probably. Another attempt to convince me that yesterday was a misunderstanding instead of a betrayal. Another chance to pretend that love and money are the same thing, and that family means never having to say you're sorry, but I don't check the message. Instead, I turn off my phone and put it in my pocket, choosing the warm light of Grandma Helen's kitchen over the cold glow of their Caribbean paradise. For the first time in my life, I'm choosing my own well-being over their convenience, and it feels like the beginning of everything. Part 6-9. The outside validation through systematic erosion. The smell of Grandma Helen's pot roast fills the kitchen as I sit at her worn wooden table, surrounded by business ledgers and contract samples that Uncle Jake has spread across the surface. It's been 3 days since the airport incident, and my phone has finally stopped buzzing with constant calls and messages from my family. Either they've given up trying to convince me to join them, or they've decided to enjoy their vacation without the inconvenience of dealing with my dramatics. "This is the part most small business owners hate," Jake explains, pointing to a thick folder labeled Client Communications, keeping track of who said what, when they said it, and making sure everyone's on the same page. "I've lost more money to misunderstandings than I care to admit." I nod, taking notes in the margins of the sample contracts he's showing me. The work is more complex than I expected, requiring attention to detail that goes far beyond what I learned in my business classes at ASU. These aren't theoretical case studies or textbook examples. These are real projects with real deadlines and real consequences if something goes wrong. "The thing is," Jake continues, "construction is built on trust. When someone hires you to renovate their kitchen or add a room to their house, they're letting you into their most personal space. They're trusting you with their home, their budget, and their vision of how they want to live. If you break that trust, word gets around fast. There's something pointed in the way he says it, and I look up from the contract I'm reading to find him watching me with serious eyes. Your parents called me yesterday, he says quietly. While you were at class. My stomach drops. I'd known this moment would come eventually. My family doesn't like being ignored, and they certainly don't like having their narrative challenged by people they consider beneath them socially and economically. What did they say? Your mother wanted to know if I was encouraging your defiant behavior. He uses air quotes around the phrase, his voice taking on a mocking tone. She seemed to think I was filling your head with ideas about being independent and self-sufficient. The phrase defiant behavior stings more than it should. This is how they've always framed any attempt I've made to question their decisions or advocate for myself. Not as legitimate concerns or reasonable boundaries, but as defiance that needs to be corrected. She also wanted to know if I was planning to enable your victim mentality by giving you a job you hadn't earned. Jake's jaw tightens as he says this, and I can see the anger he's trying to keep under control. Apparently, hiring my own niece to help with legitimate business needs is somehow inappropriate nepotism. I think about all the times Tyler has gotten opportunities through Dad's business connections, or the way Madison's cheerleading coach happens to be one of Mom's real estate clients. Nepotism only seems to be a problem when it benefits me instead of the family's golden children. What did you tell her? I told her that any 20-year-old who can maintain a 3.8 GPA, while working multiple jobs, has already earned more respect than most adults ever will. He closes the contract folder and looks at me directly. I also told her that if she ever calls my house again to question my business decisions, she'll be dealing with me instead of you. The protective anger in his voice surprises me. I'm not used to having adults defend my choices or validate my feelings. In my family, adults are united in their belief that I should be grateful for whatever scraps of attention and support they throw my way. She didn't like that very much, I'm guessing. She threatened to cut off contact between you and the family if I didn't stop interfering with their internal matters. Jake shakes his head. I told her that sounded like a win-win situation for everyone involved. The idea of being cut off from my family should terrify me. For 20 years, they've been the center of my universe, the people whose approval I've sought and whose disappointment I've feared most. But sitting here in Grandma Helen's kitchen, surrounded by the evidence of Uncle Jake's successful business and the warmth of people who actually seem to value my presence, the threat feels less like a punishment and more like a liberation. There's something else, Jake says, his voice getting quieter. Your grandmother has been doing some digging into your family's finances. She used to work in banking before she retired, and she has some friends who still work in the industry. I feel a chill run down my spine. What kind of digging? The kind that suggests your parents aren't quite as financially stable as they pretend to be. He pulls out a manila folder I hadn't noticed before, thick with printouts and handwritten notes. Helen, why don't you explain what you found? Grandma Helen emerges from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish rag, and wearing the expression she used to get when she was helping me with math homework, and we'd discovered I'd been solving problems the hard way for weeks. Your parents are in debt, sweetheart, she says without preamble. Serious debt. The kind that explains why they needed your $5,000 so badly. She sits down across from me and opens the folder, revealing bank statements and credit reports that I definitely don't want to know how she obtained. The mortgage on their house is underwater. They owe more than it's worth, and they've missed 3 payments in the last 6 months. She points to a highlighted section on one of the documents. The BMW your father drives. Leased, and he's behind on those payments too. Your mother's real estate business. She hasn't closed a sale in 8 months. The numbers on the page blur as I try to process what she's telling me. My parents, who have always lectured me about financial responsibility and the importance of living within my means, are apparently drowning in debt that they've been hiding behind expensive clothes and luxury purchases. How did you get all this? I ask. Let's just say that when you work in banking for 30 years, you make friends who care about protecting young people from financial abuse. Grandma Helen's voice is grim. Because that's what this is, Emma. What they did to you at the airport wasn't just cruel. It was financially abusive. The term hits me like a physical blow. Financial abuse. I've heard the phrase before, usually in the context of domestic violence situations or elder abuse cases. I never thought to apply it to my own family, my own life. But they're not beating me or locking me up or anything like that, I say weakly. Abuse doesn't have to be physical, Jake says. Taking your money under false pretenses, manipulating you into paying for things they can't afford, using your love and loyalty against you to extract financial resources you can't spare. That's abuse. I think about all the times they've asked me for money over the past 2 years. Tyler's graduation party that somehow required a $1,000 catering budget. Madison's cheerleading camp that was essential for her development. The kitchen renovation that Dad said would increase the house's value, making it a smart investment for the whole family. How much of my money have they taken over the years? How many of my carefully saved dollars have gone toward maintaining their lifestyle while I've lived on ramen noodles and generic shampoo? There's more, Grandma Helen says, pulling out another set of documents. Tyler's job at Goldman Sachs. It's real, but his starting salary is about $30,000 less than what they've been telling people. And Madison's cheerleading. They haven't paid her coach in 3 months. The lies keep coming, each one more devastating than the last. My family, who have always presented themselves as successful and financially secure, are apparently living a complete fabrication funded partly by my savings account and partly by credit cards they can't afford to pay off. Why are you showing me this? I ask, though I think I already know the answer. Because they're going to come after you again, Jake says. When they get back from their vacation, when the credit card bills from this trip start coming in, when reality crashes back down on them, they're going to need more money. And you're their favorite target because you've never said no before. The realization that this isn't over, that the airport incident was just the beginning of what they'll try to take from me, makes my chest tight with anxiety. I've been thinking of the $5,000 as a one-time loss, painful but survivable. I hadn't considered that it might be the first payment in an ongoing extortion scheme. What am I supposed to do? I ask. You're supposed to protect yourself, Grandma Helen says firmly. Starting right now. She pulls out a thick packet of papers from the bottom of the folder. I've already started the process of helping you establish financial independence. Your own bank account at a different institution, where they can't access your funds or monitor your transactions. A credit card in your name only, with a low limit to help you build credit without risking serious debt. And documentation of every dollar they've taken from you over the past 2 years. I stare at the paperwork, overwhelmed by the implications of what she's suggesting. Opening my own accounts, hiding my money from my family, treating them like potential thieves instead of people who love me, it feels like crossing a line I can't uncross. I know it's scary, Jake says, seeming to read my thoughts. But Emma, they crossed that line first when they took your money and left you at the airport. You're not betraying them by protecting yourself. You're just refusing to let them betray you again. That evening, I'm sitting in my temporary bedroom at Grandma Helen's house, staring at the new bank cards that arrived by courier. My name printed in clean black letters. Emma Louise Mitchell. My own account. My own credit. My own financial future that nobody else can touch or manipulate or steal. My phone, which had been blissfully quiet for most of the day, suddenly lights up with an incoming call. Madison's contact photo fills the screen, a selfie of her in her cheerleading uniform, all white teeth and perfect makeup. Against my better judgment, I answer. Emma, she squeals, and I can hear ocean waves in the background. Oh my God, you are missing the most amazing vacation ever. We just got back from swimming with dolphins, and tomorrow we're going parasailing. The resort is literally paradise. Swimming with dolphins, parasailing. Activities that probably cost hundreds of dollars each, paid for with money they couldn't afford to spend and upgrade fees they extorted from their college student daughter. That sounds nice, I say, trying to keep my voice neutral. It's more than nice, it's incredible. You would love it here. The beach is like something out of a magazine, and the food is insane. I had lobster for lunch. Lobster. For lunch. She laughs like this is the most delightful thing that's ever happened to her. I think about my own lunch today, a peanut butter sandwich I made myself in Grandma Helen's kitchen while studying construction contracts. Somehow, that sandwich tasted better than any lobster I've ever had, probably because I didn't have to exploit my family members to afford it. Listen, Madison continues, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Mom and Dad are being weird about you not being here. Like they keep making excuses to other families at the resort about why their daughter isn't with them. It's kind of embarrassing. Embarrassing. My absence is embarrassing to them. Not because they miss me or feel guilty about how they treated me, but because it's socially awkward to explain why one of their children isn't participating in their family vacation. What kind of excuses? I ask, morbid curiosity getting the better of me. Oh, college commitments, work obligations, scheduling conflicts. Dad told one couple that you're so dedicated to your studies that you couldn't take time off. Mom told another family that you're doing an internship that was too good to pass up. Neither of which is technically untrue, but both of which completely erase the reality of what actually happened. In their version of events, I'm the studious, career-focused daughter who prioritizes her education over family time. I'm responsible and mature, and making good choices that they fully support. There's no mention of the $5,000. No acknowledgement of the airport abandonment. No hint that they manufactured a crisis to extract money from me, and then left me stranded when I'd served my purpose. Madison, I say carefully. Do you actually remember what happened at the airport? Why I'm not there with you? A pause. I can hear her moving away from the background noise, probably walking to a quieter spot where she can have this conversation without being overheard. Look, Emma. I know you're probably still upset about the whole seating thing, but it all worked out, didn't it? You got to avoid the hassle of traveling. We got the upgrades. Everyone's happy. Everyone's happy. Everyone except the person who lost her life savings and got abandoned by her family in the process. I'm not happy, Madison. Well, okay, but you'll get over it. You always do. And besides, this vacation is exactly what Tyler needed before starting his new job. He's been so stressed about the move to New York and everything. This is the last chance we'll have to be together as a family for who knows how long. The last chance to be together as a family. Except we're not together. Because they made sure I wouldn't be there. But somehow, in Madison's mind, this is still about Tyler's needs and Tyler's stress and Tyler's big life transition that requires everyone else to sacrifice for his benefit. What about what I needed? I ask. What do you mean? I needed my family not to steal my money and abandon me at an airport. I needed the people who are supposed to love me to actually act like they love me instead of treating me like a bank account with legs. Emma. God. You're being so dramatic. Nobody stole anything. You gave us the money for the upgrades, and we're all grateful for that. It's not our fault the airline couldn't accommodate everyone. The lie comes so easily to her that I wonder if she's actually convinced herself it's true. If she's genuinely rewritten the events of that day in her mind to erase the parts that make her uncomfortable. Madison. There was no airline mix-up. Mom and Dad planned this for weeks. They asked Grandma Helen about taking my money before we ever got to the airport. That's not. I mean, even if they talked to Grandma about it, that doesn't mean anything bad. They were probably just making sure you'd be okay with helping out. Did they ask me if I'd be okay with helping out? Silence. Did they tell me ahead of time that there might not be a seat for me? More silence. Madison. They took my money and left me behind. That's not a family vacation. That's theft and abandonment. You're being ridiculous, she says. But there's less conviction in her voice now. You're making this into something it's not. Mom and Dad love you. They've always taken care of you. When? When have they taken care of me? They pay for your college. I have academic scholarships and student loans. They co-signed the loans, but I'm responsible for paying them back.
They give you a place to live. In exchange for doing all the housework, yard work, and maintaining their cars. She struggles for a moment. They're your parents, Emma. They don't have to justify every decision to you. And there it is. The underlying belief system that governs our family dynamics. Parents are authorities who don't have to explain themselves, and children are subordinates who should be grateful for whatever scraps of attention and support they receive. Actually, Madison, they do have to justify stealing my money. They do have to explain why they thought it was okay to abandon me at an airport. And if they can't do that, then maybe they're not the kind of parents worth having. The words surprise me as I say them. I've never criticized my parents directly to my siblings before, never suggested that their authority might not be absolute or their decisions might not be in my best interest. I can't believe you just said that, Madison says, her voice sharp with shock and something that sounds like genuine hurt. How can you talk about mom and dad like that? After everything they've done for you. What have they done for me, Madison? Specifically, what have they actually done that I should be grateful for? They raised you, they fed you and clothed you and put a roof over your head. That's the legal minimum requirement for parents. That's not special treatment that deserves eternal gratitude. You're being hateful, she says. And now she sounds like she's crying. You're being mean and hateful, and I don't understand why you're trying to ruin our vacation with all this negativity. Ruin their vacation. The vacation I paid for but can't attend. The vacation they're enjoying while I'm sitting in my grandmother's spare bedroom, trying to rebuild my life from the financial devastation they caused. I'm not trying to ruin anything, Madison. I'm trying to understand why the people who claim to love me thought it was okay to treat me like an ATM instead of a daughter. Fine, she says, her voice cold now. If that's how you want to see it, fine. But don't expect us to keep begging you to come back when you're being this awful. The line goes dead, and I stare at my phone in the gathering darkness of my room. Awful. I'm being awful for refusing to pretend that theft and abandonment are acts of love. I'm being awful for expecting my family to treat me with basic respect and consideration. But sitting here in this quiet room, surrounded by the evidence of my new independence and the support of people who actually seem to value my well-being, I don't feel awful. I feel something I haven't felt in years. I feel like I'm finally telling the truth. And the truth, it turns out, is that my family has been lying to me and themselves for so long that they've forgotten what honest relationships look like. They've created a system where I'm expected to give everything and be grateful for scraps, where my needs are always secondary to their wants, where questioning their decisions makes me ungrateful instead of reasonable. But that system only works if I keep participating in it. It only functions if I keep believing that love requires self-destruction and family means sacrificing my own well-being for their comfort. Tomorrow, Uncle Jake is taking me to meet with one of his lawyer friends about setting up formal documentation of my financial independence. Next week, I'm starting my new job helping with his business administration. Next month, I'm moving into the small apartment above his office space, where I'll pay fair rent for a space that's truly mine. I'm building a life where my value isn't measured by how much money I can contribute to other people's dreams, where my worth isn't determined by how willing I am to disappear when my presence becomes inconvenient. It's a life my family will probably never understand or approve of, but for the first time since I stood in that airport watching their plane disappear into the sky, I realize I don't need their approval anymore. I just need to keep moving forward. One honest conversation and one self-respecting decision at a time. Parts 10-14. The catalyst question through new life resolution. The notification from my banking app pops up on my phone as I'm walking across the Arizona State University campus, my backpack heavy with textbooks I can finally afford to buy new instead of hunting for used copies online. The deposit has cleared my first full paycheck from Patterson Construction, plus a performance bonus that Uncle Jake insisted I'd earned by streamlining his client communication system. $3,200. More money than I've ever seen in my account at one time, and every penny of it belongs to me. No family emergencies to fund, no guilt-laden requests for temporary loans, no manipulation disguised as family loyalty. Just the result of hard work and fair compensation from people who value my contributions. It's been 18 months since the airport incident, and my life has transformed in ways I never could have imagined when I was standing in that
terminal watching my family's plane disappear. I'm living in the apartment above Uncle Jake's office now, a small but comfortable space with a kitchen window that looks out onto the Phoenix Mountains. I've decorated it with furniture from thrift stores and garage sales, each piece chosen because I liked it, not because it matched some predetermined aesthetic designed to impress neighbors and real estate clients. The silence on my phone has been complete for the past 6 months. No calls, no texts, no social media interactions from any member of my immediate family. According to my cousin Sophie, who still maintains contact with them through social media, they've settled into a new narrative about my absence from their lives. I'm the ungrateful daughter who chose strangers over family, the selfish sister who abandoned them in their time of need, the troubled young woman who threw away everything they'd given me because of some imaginary slight. The story they tell makes them the victims and me the villain, which probably makes it easier for them to sleep at night. It's certainly easier than acknowledging that they drove away their own daughter through years of financial exploitation and emotional manipulation. My phone buzzes with a text from Dr. Jennifer Walsh, my academic advisor at ASU. She's been mentoring me for the past year, helping me navigate the scholarship applications and internship opportunities that have opened up since I started focusing on my own goals instead of my family's demands. Coffee at 3, I have news about the Morrison Fellowship. The Morrison Fellowship, a full-ride opportunity for outstanding business students that includes a summer internship at a Fortune 500 company and a guaranteed job offer upon graduation. I'd applied on Dr. Walsh's encouragement, though I hadn't really believed I had a chance. The competition was fierce, and most of the other applicants had advantages I'd never possessed: family connections, unpaid internship opportunities they could afford to take, parents who could fund expensive test prep courses and application consultants. But Dr. Walsh had seen something in me that I was only beginning to see in myself. She'd noticed the way I approached problems differently because I'd had to solve them with limited resources. She'd recognized that my experience managing real-world financial pressure while maintaining academic excellence demonstrated exactly the kind of resilience and practical intelligence that the fellowship was designed to reward. An hour later, I'm sitting across from her in the campus coffee shop, watching her face light up as she slides an official-looking envelope across the small table between us. "Emma," she says, her voice warm with pride, "congratulations. You got it." The words take a moment to penetrate. I stare at the envelope with my name printed in formal script across the front, afraid to touch it in case this turns out to be some kind of elaborate dream. "I got it," I repeat stupidly. "Full fellowship, tuition, room and board, books, plus a monthly stipend for living expenses. The internship is with Morrison Industries in Dallas, and if you perform well, you'll have a job offer starting at $75,000 a year. $75,000, more money than anyone in my family has ever made, more security than I've ever imagined possible, the kind of salary that would allow me to build the life I want instead of just surviving paycheck to paycheck." "There's something else," Dr. Walsh continues, pulling out another document. "The fellowship committee was so impressed with your application essay about overcoming financial adversity that they want to feature your story in their annual report. It would mean speaking at their gala in the spring, sharing your experience with donors and other fellowship recipients." The idea of standing in front of a room full of successful people and telling them about being abandoned at an airport by my own family feels both terrifying and oddly liberating. For so long, I've carried the shame of what happened like a secret, as if their treatment of me reflected some fundamental flaw in my character rather than theirs. "What would I have to talk about?" I ask. "Whatever you're comfortable sharing." "But Emma, your story is powerful precisely because it's real. You've overcome obstacles that would have destroyed most people your age, and you've done it with grace and determination. That's exactly the kind of inspiration these donors want to support." That evening, I'm sitting on the small balcony of my apartment, watching the sunset paint the desert sky in shades of orange and pink that still take my breath away after a lifetime of living in Phoenix. The fellowship letter sits on the table beside me, along with a bottle of wine that Uncle Jake brought over to celebrate. He's inside making dinner, insisting that this achievement deserves more than my usual meal of pasta and whatever vegetables were on sale at the grocery store. My phone rings, interrupting my peaceful contemplation of how dramatically my life is about to change. The caller ID shows a number I don't recognize, but the area code is local. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something makes me answer. Emma. The voice is hesitant, nervous, and it takes me a moment to place it. Tyler. Hi. I say, my voice carefully neutral. I haven't spoken to my brother in over a year, not since that phone call from Turks and Caicos, where he told me I was being dramatic about being abandoned at the airport. I got your number from Sophie. I hope that's okay. Sophie, my cousin, has maintained strict neutrality in the family conflict, refusing to take sides, but also refusing to completely cut contact with either faction. I don't blame her for giving Tyler my number, but I do wonder what could possibly be urgent enough to prompt this call after months of radio silence. What's up, Tyler? I ask, genuinely curious about what could have motivated him to reach out. I'm in Phoenix, he says, for work, and I was wondering if we could meet up, just to talk. The request surprises me. Tyler's job at Goldman Sachs has kept him busy in New York, and according to family social media posts that Sophie occasionally shares with me, he's been thriving in the high-pressure world of investment banking. What could possibly bring him back to Phoenix, and why would he want to see me? Talk about what? I ask. About everything. About what happened. About the family. His voice carries a weight I've never heard before, a weariness that seems out of place coming from someone who supposedly got everything he wanted. Against my better judgment, I find myself agreeing to meet him for coffee the next day, partly because I'm curious about what he wants to say, and partly because I've reached a place in my life where I can handle whatever manipulation or guilt trip he might have planned. I'm not the same person who stood in that airport 18 months ago, broke and abandoned and desperate for their approval. The next afternoon, I arrive at the coffee shop 5 minutes early and claim a table near the back, where we'll have some privacy. Tyler walks in exactly on time, and I'm struck by how different he looks from the confident, smirking young man who waved goodbye to me at the airport gate. He's thinner, with dark circles under his eyes, and a nervous energy that makes him seem younger and more vulnerable than his 25 years. He orders a large coffee and sits across from me, fidgeting with his phone and avoiding eye contact in a way that reminds me uncomfortably of Dad whenever he had to deliver bad news. You look good, he says finally, happy, successful. Thank you, I reply, not bothering to return the compliment. He doesn't look good, and I'm not interested in pretending otherwise. I heard about the fellowship, he continues. Sophie mentioned it. That's really impressive, Emma. You should be proud. I am proud, I say simply. Silence stretches between us, while he struggles to find words for whatever he came here to say. I wait patiently, sipping my latte, and watching him wrestle with discomfort that he clearly isn't used to experiencing. The family is falling apart, he says finally, the words coming out in a rush, like he's afraid he'll lose his nerve if he doesn't say them quickly. I raise an eyebrow, but don't respond. This isn't my problem to solve anymore. Dad lost his job 6 months ago, Tyler continues. His company downsized, and he was part of the layoffs. Mom's real estate business never recovered from the market changes, and they're behind on the mortgage again. Madison dropped out of high school and moved in with some guy she met online. Each piece of information hits like a small shock, but I'm surprised to find that I feel more curiosity than concern. These are the consequences of choices they made, problems they created through years of living beyond their means and prioritizing image over substance. I'm sorry to hear that, I say, and I mean it. I don't wish suffering on anyone, even people who've hurt me. They've been asking me for money, Tyler says, his voice dropping to almost a whisper. A lot of money. Mom keeps calling me crying about losing the house, and Dad sends me these long emails about temporary setbacks and family loyalty. Madison wants me to pay for her to get her GED and maybe community college. Now I understand why he looks so exhausted. He's experiencing what I lived with for years, the constant pressure to solve other people's problems with money I couldn't afford to give. How much have you given them? I ask. Too much, he admits. I've been sending Dad $1,000 a month to help with the mortgage, plus whatever Madison needs for her living expenses.
Last month, Mom convinced me to pay for some kind of credit counseling service that was supposed to help them get their finances back on track. I do the math in my head. Even with his Goldman Sachs salary, that kind of financial drain would be significant, and knowing my family, they'll keep asking for more until he has nothing left to give. Why are you telling me this? I ask. Because, he takes a shaky breath, because I finally understand what you tried to tell me, about how they treat us, about how they see us. The admission hangs in the air between us, heavy with implications. What do you mean? Last week Dad called me to ask for $5,000 for some kind of emergency home repair. When I told him I didn't have that much liquid cash available right now, he said things about how ungrateful I was, how I'd forgotten where I came from, how I was turning my back on family just like you did. Tyler's hands shake slightly as he reaches for his coffee cup. He said that you'd poisoned my mind against them, that you'd taught me to be selfish and heartless, and Emma, the way he said it, it was like he genuinely believed that you were the problem, that you were the reason their lives were falling apart. The audacity of it would be laughable if it weren't so predictable. Of course they found a way to make me responsible for consequences that have nothing to do with my choices, and everything to do with theirs. What did you say? I ask. I told him that you hadn't spoken to me in over a year, so you couldn't have poisoned my mind against anyone, and that maybe, just maybe, their financial problems had more to do with their own decisions than with anything you'd done. How did he react to that? Tyler laughs bitterly. He hung up on me. Then Mom called an hour later to tell me I was being manipulated by outside influences, and that I needed to remember who my real family was. Outside influences. Uncle Jake and Grandma Helen, presumably. The people who've shown me what healthy family relationships actually look like, who've supported my goals without expecting anything in return, who've helped me build a life based on my own values, instead of their expectations. Tyler, I say carefully, what do you want from me? Why are you telling me all this? He's quiet for a long moment, staring into his coffee cup, like it might contain answers to questions he's afraid to ask. I want to apologize, he says finally, for the airport, for the way we treated you, for not standing up for you when I should have. The apology surprises me in its directness. No qualifications, no excuses, no attempts to minimize what happened, or share the blame. Thank you, I say. That means something. I also want to ask. He looks up at me with eyes that remind me of the brother I used to admire before Goldman Sachs and family dynamics turned him into someone I didn't recognize. How did you do it? How did you walk away? How did you build something better? The question reveals more vulnerability than I've ever seen from Tyler. He's always been the golden child, the one whose achievements were celebrated, and whose future was bright with promise. But sitting here now, I can see that his success came with strings attached that are slowly strangling him. It wasn't easy, I tell him honestly, and it wasn't immediate. I had help from people who actually cared about my well-being, instead of what I could do for them. Uncle Jake and Grandma Helen, yes. They showed me what it looks like when people support you without expecting you to sacrifice your own happiness for theirs. Tyler nods slowly. I think I need to find people like that. You do. I agree. But Tyler, you also need to understand that walking away means actually walking away. It means accepting that they'll never admit they were wrong, never apologize for the pain they caused, never become the parents we deserve to have. How do you live with that? He asks. By building a life so good that their approval becomes irrelevant, I say. By surrounding yourself with people who see your worth, who support your dreams, who treat you with the respect and kindness that should have been your birthright. We talk for another hour, and I watch my brother wrestle with truths that I've already processed and accepted. He's not ready to make the complete break that I made, but he's beginning to understand that the family dynamics he's always taken for granted are actually deeply dysfunctional. When we part ways, he hugs me for the first time in years, and I feel something shift between us. Not a complete reconciliation, but the beginning of a relationship based on honesty, instead of shared trauma. 6 months later, I'm standing on a stage in Dallas, wearing a black dress that I bought with my own money, and speaking to an audience of successful professionals about the journey that brought me here. The Morrison Fellowship Gala is exactly as elegant and inspiring as I'd imagined, full of people who understand that investing in education and opportunity can transform lives. Financial abuse within family looks more common than most people realize. I tell the audience, my voice steady and confident. It often masquerades as love, as family loyalty, as teaching responsibility, but real love doesn't require you to impoverish yourself for other people's comfort. I can see Uncle Jake and Grandma Helen in the audience, beaming with pride at the young woman I've become. Dr. Walsh is there too, along with several of my professors and classmates who've become genuine friends over the past year. The greatest gift my family gave me wasn't their support, I continue. It was showing me what I didn't want my life to look like. They taught me that I deserved better, even if they didn't mean to. The laughter from the audience is warm and understanding. These are people who've overcome their own obstacles, who understand that success often comes from learning to value yourself enough to walk away from situations that diminish you. After my speech, I'm surrounded by fellowship recipients and donors who want to share their own stories of transformation, but the conversation that means the most to me comes from a young woman about my own age, who pulls me aside as the evening is winding down. My parents did something similar to me, she says quietly. They took money from my college fund to pay for my brother's wedding, and when I protested, they told me I was being selfish. I've been feeling guilty about being angry with them, but hearing your story, it helps me understand that my feelings are valid. They are valid, I tell her, and you deserve to protect yourself, even if that means disappointing people who claim to love you. As I drive back to my hotel that night, I think about the girl I was 18 months ago, standing in an airport with a depleted bank account and a broken heart. She couldn't have imagined that her lowest moment would become the foundation for everything good that followed. My phone buzzes with a text from Uncle Jake. Proud of you, kiddo. Your mom would be proud too. He's talking about my birth mother, the one who died when I was young, not the woman who raised me but never really saw me. And he's right. She would be proud of the woman I've become, the life I've built, the courage I've found to stand up for myself and help others do the same. Tomorrow, I start my internship at Morrison Industries, where I'll spend the summer learning from executives who've built their careers on merit and innovation rather than manipulation and exploitation. In the fall, I'll return to ASU for my senior year, knowing that my future is secure and my path is clear. And when I graduate next spring, I'll have something my family never gave me, the confidence that comes from knowing I earned every opportunity through my own efforts, every dollar through my own work, every achievement through my own determination. I'm not the daughter they wanted, the one who would sacrifice endlessly for their comfort and convenience, but I'm the woman I was meant to become, independent, successful, and surrounded by people who value me for who I am, rather than what I can provide. The airport incident, that once felt like the worst thing that ever happened to me, has become the best thing that ever happened to me. It forced me to confront truths I'd been avoiding, to build strength I didn't know I possessed, to discover that I was worth more than I'd ever been allowed to believe. And as I fall asleep in my hotel room in Dallas, preparing for the next chapter of a life that belongs entirely to me, I feel something I've never felt before: complete peace with the choices I've made, and excitement for all the choices still to come. Some families are born, others are chosen, and the family I've chosen has given me something my birth family never could: the freedom to become exactly who I was meant to be. The conference room on the 32nd floor of Morrison Industries headquarters overlooks downtown Dallas, floor-to-ceiling windows, offering a view of the city skyline that still takes my breath away even after 3 years of working here. I'm 24 now, no longer the uncertain college student who walked into this building for her summer internship with a chip on her shoulder and something to prove. That girl has been replaced by someone who knows her worth, someone who's earned her seat at this table through talent and determination, rather than family connections or inherited privilege. Emma, your quarterly projections are exceptional, Marcus Bennett, the CFO, says as he reviews the financial analysis I've prepared. The efficiency improvements you've implemented in our vendor management system have saved the company over $2 million this fiscal year alone. $2 million. I think about how my family used to manipulate me over amounts as small as a few $100s, how they made me feel guilty for wanting to keep my own hard-earned savings. Now I'm responsible for managing budgets that would have seemed incomprehensible to the girl who once worked double shifts at Target just to afford textbooks. Thank you, I respond, my voice calm and professional. I've identified 3 additional areas where we could streamline operations without compromising quality. I'd like to present those recommendations at next month's executive meeting. The nods around the table confirm what I've known for months now. I'm being groomed for a director position, the youngest person in company history to be considered for such a role. The promotion would come with a salary increase that would put me well into 6 figures, along with stock options and benefits that represent the kind of security I once thought was reserved for people born into different circumstances. My phone buzzes silently in my pocket as the meeting concludes. I ignore it until I'm back in my office, a corner space with my name on the door, and photographs I've chosen decorating the credenza behind my desk. Uncle Jake and Grandma Helen at my college graduation, Dr. Walsh and me at the Morrison Fellowship Gala, Sophie and me hiking in Sedona last summer, images of people who've supported me, celebrated me, treated me like I mattered for reasons that had nothing to do with what I could give them. The missed call is from a number I don't recognize, but the voicemail notification shows it's local to Phoenix. Curiosity gets the better of me, and I play the message while organizing the files from this morning's meeting. Emma, this is your father. The voice is older than I remember, tired in a way that goes beyond physical exhaustion. I know we haven't spoken in 5 years, but I need to talk to you. It's important. Please call me back at this number. The shock of hearing his voice after so long makes me set down the papers I was holding. 5 years. 5 years since I walked out of that airport and into Grandma Helen's house, since I stopped answering the calls and deleted their messages unread, since I built a life so separate from theirs that they might as well be strangers who once knew my name. I saved the voicemail without calling back, not because I'm afraid of what he wants, but because I need time to decide whether engaging with him serves any purpose other than reopening wounds that have finally scarred over. Tyler warned me this might happen eventually. During our occasional coffee meetups, when I'm back in Phoenix visiting family, he's mentioned that things have gotten worse for our parents in the years since I left. The house in Scottsdale was foreclosed on 2 years ago. They're renting a small apartment in a less desirable part of town now, both working service jobs that barely cover their basic expenses. Madison is living with her 3rd boyfriend in as many years, working sporadically and calling home for money that our parents don't have to give. The image they worked so hard to maintain has completely crumbled, leaving behind the reality they spent decades trying to hide. Tyler himself has changed dramatically since that coffee shop conversation 18 months after the airport incident. He quit Goldman Sachs after a year of 80-hour weeks and soul-crushing pressure to bring in clients through family connections he didn't have. Now he works for a smaller investment firm in Phoenix, making less money but actually sleeping at night, and maintaining relationships that aren't purely transactional. He's in therapy, working through the realization that our family's dysfunction shaped him in ways he's only beginning to understand. You look like you've seen a ghost, my colleague Priya says, poking her head into my office with a stack of files. Everything okay? My father left me a voicemail, I say, surprised by how easily the words come. First contact in 5 years. Priya knows my history. We've become close friends during my time at Morrison Industries, bonding over shared experiences of overcoming difficult family situations to build successful careers. Her parents disowned her when she came out as gay at 19, and she spent years rebuilding her life while grieving the family she'd lost. What did he say? She asks, settling into the chair across from my desk with the easy familiarity of someone who's been here before. Just that he needs to talk to me about something important. Are you going to call him back? The question sits between us while I consider all the possible reasons he might be reaching out now. Money, most likely. Some new crisis that requires financial resources they don't have, and think I might provide, or perhaps something medical, something serious enough to make him swallow his pride and contact the daughter he hasn't spoken to in half a decade. I don't know, I admit. Part of me is curious. Part of me knows that whatever he wants, it's not because he's had some revelation about how they treated me, it's because he needs something. Probably. Priya agrees. But you're not the same person you were 5 years ago. You're not vulnerable to their manipulation anymore. If you decide to call him back, you can do it from a position of strength. She's right, of course. The girl who stood in that airport with a depleted bank account and a broken heart no longer exists. In her place is a woman who's built a career on her own merit, who owns her own condo in a nice neighborhood, who has savings and investments, and a future that doesn't depend on anyone's approval but her own. That evening, I'm cooking dinner in my kitchen when my phone rings again. Same number as before. And this time I answer before I can talk myself out of it. Emma. My father's voice cracks slightly on my name, as if he's not sure he has the right to say it. Thank you for calling back. What do you want, Dad? I ask, keeping my tone neutral as I stir the pasta sauce on the stove. I want to see you, he says. I'm in Dallas. I drove here to find you. The statement stops me cold. Dallas is a 12-hour drive from Phoenix, not the kind of trip someone makes on a whim. Whatever he wants must be serious enough to justify the time and expense of getting here. How did you know I was in Dallas? I ask. Tyler told me. He said you work for Morrison Industries, that you're doing well. There's something in his voice that might be pride, or might be regret, or might just be the complicated emotions of a parent who's realizing too late what they've lost. I'm staying at a motel near the airport. Could we meet somewhere, just to talk? Every instinct I've developed over the past 5 years tells me this is a bad idea, that nothing good can come from reopening communication with people who've proven they see me as a resource rather than a daughter. But another part of me, the part that's strong enough now to handle whatever comes, is curious about what could possibly have motivated him to drive 12 hours to see me. There's a coffee shop near my office, I say, giving him the address. I can meet you there tomorrow at 6. The next evening, I arrive at the coffee shop 15 minutes early and claim a table near the back, where I can watch the door. My therapist, Dr. Rodriguez, would probably tell me I'm being hypervigilant, protecting myself by maintaining strategic advantages, even in situations that don't require them. She'd be right, but that hypervigilance has served me well in the business world, where reading people and anticipating their moves can mean the difference between success and failure. My father walks in at exactly 6 o'clock, and the sight of him is jarring in ways I didn't anticipate. He's aged dramatically in 5 years, his hair completely gray now, and his face lined with stress and exhaustion. He's wearing cheap jeans and a wrinkled button-down shirt that would never have passed muster in the life he used to lead, when appearance was everything, and admitting struggle was weakness. He spots me and walks over slowly, as if approaching a wild animal that might bolt at any sudden movement. When he reaches the table, he doesn't try to hug me or touch me, just stands there awkwardly until I gesture for him to sit. You look successful, he says finally, taking in my professional attire and the leather portfolio on the table beside me.
Tyler wasn't exaggerating. You've really made something of yourself. Why are you here, Dad? I ask, not interested in small talk or preliminary pleasantries. He takes a deep breath, his hands trembling slightly as he sets his coffee cup on the table. Your mother is sick. Cancer. Stage 3. The doctors are recommending aggressive treatment, but our insurance doesn't cover most of it. The words land like physical blows, each one reverberating through my chest in ways I don't want to examine too closely. Cancer. The same disease that took my birth mother, the one who died when I was too young to remember her clearly, but old enough to feel the absence of her love every day since. I'm sorry to hear that, I say, and I mean it. Despite everything, I don't wish suffering on anyone, especially not the kind of suffering that comes with fighting a disease that doesn't care about pride or social status or carefully maintained appearances. The treatment she needs costs about $150,000, he continues, his voice breaking slightly. We don't have that kind of money. We don't have any money, really. The house is gone. Our retirement accounts are empty. We're barely making rent as it is. And there it is. The real reason he drove 12 hours to see me, not to apologize for the airport incident or acknowledge the years of financial exploitation, not to ask how I'm doing or express genuine interest in my life, just another request for money, this time with the highest possible stakes attached. What about Tyler? I ask. Madison. Tyler's helping as much as he can, but he has his own expenses. Student loans from his MBA, rent in Phoenix, he's saving up to buy a house with his girlfriend. Dad's hands twist together on the table. Madison can't help. She's barely keeping herself afloat. So you want me to pay for mom's treatment? I state rather than ask. I know I have no right to ask you for anything, he says, the words coming out in a rush. I know we failed you. I know what happened at the airport was wrong, that the way we treated you for years was wrong. I know all of that, Emma, but your mother is dying, and I don't know where else to turn. The honesty in his admission surprises me. This is closer to accountability than I ever expected to receive from either of my parents. But acknowledgement of wrongdoing isn't the same as genuine remorse, and desperate circumstances don't erase years of calculated exploitation. Tell me something, I say, my voice steady despite the emotions churning in my chest. If mom wasn't sick, if you didn't need money, would you have driven 12 hours to apologize? Would you have ever contacted me at all? The silence that follows answers my question more clearly than any words could. He wouldn't have. Without this crisis, I would have remained indefinitely exiled from their lives, the ungrateful daughter who chose herself over family loyalty, the selfish sister who abandoned them in their time of need. I don't know, he says finally, at least honest enough not to lie about this. Probably not. Your mother and I convinced ourselves that you were better off without us, that you'd found your own family and didn't need us anymore. I did find my own family. I tell him Uncle Jake and Grandma Helen showed me what real family looks like. People who support you without expecting you to destroy yourself in the process. People who celebrate your success instead of resenting it. People who see your value beyond what you can provide for them financially. I know, he says quietly. Jake told me as much when I called him last week. He said you'd built a good life, and that I should leave you alone, that showing up here would only cause you pain. He was probably right. I acknowledge. But Emma, she's your mother. Despite everything, despite all our mistakes, she's your mother, and she's dying. His voice breaks completely now, tears streaming down his face in a display of vulnerability I've never witnessed from him before. I know we have no right to ask you for anything. I know we don't deserve your help. But I'm begging you anyway, because I don't know what else to do. The raw desperation in his voice triggers something complicated in my chest. This is what I once thought I wanted, to see them brought low, to have them come to me in need, to hold the power that they once wielded so carelessly. But sitting here now, watching my father cry into his cheap coffee while begging me to save the woman who helped raise me, I don't feel the triumph I once imagined I would. I feel something more complicated. Something that acknowledges the pain they caused while also recognizing that people are more than just the worst things they've done. That my mother, despite her flaws and failures, is still a human being facing mortality. That holding on to anger forever doesn't heal the wounds it was meant to protect. I need to think about this. I say finally, this isn't a decision I can make right now, in this moment. Of course, he says quickly, wiping his eyes with a napkin, take whatever time you need. I'm staying at the motel through the weekend. Here's my number if you want to reach me. He slides a piece of paper across the table with shaking hands, then stands to leave. But before he walks away, he turns back one more time. For what it's worth, he says, I am proud of you, genuinely proud. You've become the kind of person I wish I'd been strong enough to be. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything we did to you, for every time we made you feel like you didn't matter, for the airport, for all of it. I know sorry doesn't fix anything, but I need you to know that I understand now how badly we failed you. The apology hangs in the air after he leaves, and I sit in the coffee shop for a long time afterward, turning his words over in my mind, like stones I'm examining for cracks and weaknesses. Is this apology genuine, or just another manipulation designed to soften me up for the financial ask? Does it matter what motivates the apology if the words themselves are true? That night I'm on the phone with Uncle Jake, telling him about the meeting and Dad's request. He listens without interrupting, the way he always does when I'm working through something complicated. What do you want to do? He asks when I finish. I don't know, I admit. Part of me wants to tell him no, to let them deal with the consequences of their choices the way they forced me to deal with mine. but another part of me knows that I'm not the kind of person who can let someone die when I have the resources to help, even if that someone hurt me badly. Those are both valid feelings, Jake says. You don't owe them anything, Emma. You've built your life without their support, and you have every right to protect what you've created. But you also have the right to choose generosity if that's what feels right to you. If I help them, it changes everything, I say. It means staying in contact. Probably means rebuilding some kind of relationship. I've been happy without them in my life. Have you been happy, or have you been safe? Jake asks gently, because those aren't always the same thing. The question hits deeper than I expect. I have been safe these past 5 years, protected from their manipulation and exploitation by distance and silence. But have I truly been happy, or have I just been less actively unhappy than I was before? I think about the voicemail I never returned, the family events I've skipped, the photographs Sophie shares sometimes that I scroll past without really looking at. I think about the hollow feeling that appears sometimes during holidays, the wondering about what they're doing and whether they ever think about me. I think about the unfinished nature of our relationship, the conversations we never had and the closure that never came. I need to see her, I say suddenly, the decision crystallizing even as I speak it. I need to see Mom and make my own assessment of the situation. Not because I owe them anything, but because I need to make this choice from a place of clarity instead of anger or fear or unresolved trauma. 2 days later, I'm on a plane back to Phoenix for the first time in 3 years. I've taken a week off work, told my team I have a family emergency that needs my attention. The irony of that phrasing isn't lost on me for years. Their emergencies dictated my choices and depleted my resources. Now I'm choosing to respond to one final emergency on my own terms. Tyler picks me up from the airport, and the symmetry of that moment isn't lost on either of us. The last time I was at this airport, I was watching my family leave without me, broke and abandoned and convinced I meant nothing to them. Now I'm returning as a successful professional, holding all the power in this dynamic, choosing to be here rather than being forced to stay behind. She's in bad shape, Tyler warns me as we drive toward the hospital. The cancer has spread faster than they expected. She's weak in pain and scared in a way I've never seen her before. How long does she have without treatment? I ask, months, maybe less. With treatment, they're talking about a 30% chance of remission, maybe 5 more years. He glances at me while stopped at a red light. Emma, I need you to know that whatever you decide, I support you. If you want to help, I'll contribute what I can. If you decide you can't do this, I'll understand that too. The hospital room is on the 4th floor, in the oncology wing, where the walls are painted in soothing colors that are supposed to make dying feel less frightening. I stand outside the door for a long moment, gathering my courage before I push it open. My mother is in the bed by the window, and the transformation is shocking. She's lost significant weight, her hair thinned from the preliminary chemo treatments they've been able to afford. Without makeup and expensive clothes, she looks smaller somehow, more fragile, like a person instead of the imposing figure who dominated my childhood. Her eyes open when she hears the door, and when she sees me standing there, she makes a sound that's half sob, half gasp. Emma, she whispers. You came. I move to the chair beside her bed, not touching her but close enough that we can talk without her straining her voice. For a long moment, we just look at each other, years of silence and hurt and complicated emotions filling the space between us. Your father told me he talked to you. She says finally. I told him not to. I didn't want you to feel obligated, didn't want you to come back out of guilt or pity. I'm not here out of guilt or pity. I say honestly. I'm here because I needed to see you, to understand what I'm actually feeling before I make any decisions. And what are you feeling? She asks. The question is harder to answer than it should be. What am I feeling, sitting here beside the woman who raised me but never truly saw me, who provided for my physical needs while ignoring my emotional ones, who taught me to doubt my own worth while insisting it was for my own good? I'm feeling angry, I say, deciding that honesty is the only gift I have to offer right now. I'm angry about the airport, about the years of treating me like an ATM, about never once asking what I wanted or needed. I'm angry that it took you dying for Dad to apologize, angry that you're only interested in my life now because you need something from me. She nods slowly, tears sliding down her hollow cheeks. You have every right to be angry. We were terrible parents to you, Emma. We saw your strength and your capability, and we used it instead of nurturing it. We treated you like a resource instead of a daughter. The admission is more than I expected, more honest than I thought she was capable of being. I ask, the question I've carried for 5 years finally finding voice. Why did you treat Tyler and Madison so differently than you treated me? Why was I the one who had to earn love while they just received it? She's quiet for a long moment, staring at her hands twisted in the hospital blanket. When she speaks, her voice is barely above a whisper. Because you reminded me of myself, she says. When I was young, I was capable and smart and determined. I was going to do something with my life, be someone important, but then I got married and had kids, and somewhere along the way I lost myself. I became someone who measured success in kitchen renovations and real estate commissions instead of actual accomplishments. She pauses to catch her breath, the effort of speaking clearly exhausting her. When I looked at you, I saw all the potential I'd wasted, and instead of supporting you to become everything I couldn't be, I resented you for it. I pushed you harder, expected more, told myself I was teaching you responsibility, when really I was punishing you for being the person I wished I'd had the courage to be. In confession breaks something open in my chest, some barrier I've been maintaining between understanding and forgiveness. I still don't forgive what she did, still believe that her treatment of me was wrong regardless of her motivations. But I finally understand the twisted logic that made her treat her most capable child as if capability were a flaw instead of a gift. Tyler and Madison were easier, she continues. They didn't challenge me, didn't make me confront my own failures. Tyler wanted what your father wanted, success that looked good on paper without digging too deep into what it cost. Madison wanted to be taken care of, to rely on other people instead of herself. They fit into the life we'd built. You never did. I tried to fit, I say, my own voice breaking now. I tried so hard to be what you wanted, to earn your approval, to make you proud of me. I know you did, and we failed you by making you think our approval was something you had to earn instead of something you deserved by virtue of being our daughter. We sit in silence for a while, the weight of years of misunderstanding and hurt settling around us like dust. This isn't forgiveness, not yet, maybe not ever, but it's something closer to truth, to seeing each other clearly for the first time without the distortions of expectation and resentment. I'm going to pay for your treatment, I say finally, the decision made somewhere deep in my chest, where logic and emotion intertwine, not because I think it erases what happened, and not because it means we're suddenly a functional family. I'm doing it because I'm the kind of person who helps when I can, even when it's hard, even when the person needing help has hurt me. Emma, you don't have to. I know I don't have to. I interrupt. That's exactly why I'm choosing to. Because I'm making this decision from a place of strength and clarity, not from manipulation or obligation. Thank you, she whispers, fresh tears streaming down her face. I don't deserve your generosity. No, I agree. You don't. But I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for me, because I need to be able to look at myself in the mirror and know that I acted according to my values, not according to my hurt. Over the next 6 months, I navigate the complicated process of funding medical treatment while maintaining boundaries that protect my emotional well-being. I pay the bills directly to the hospital, never giving my parents access to the money itself. I visit monthly, flying back to Phoenix for weekends that are stilted and awkward but slowly becoming more authentic. My mother responds well to treatment, better than the doctors initially predicted. The cancer goes into remission, giving her the 5 years they'd hoped for. Maybe more. We don't become close in any traditional sense, but we develop something that resembles honest communication. She tells me about her regrets, the choices she wishes she could unmake, the person she wishes she'd been. I tell her about my life in Dallas, my career, my friendships, the ways I've built happiness from the ruins of our relationship. My father never quite manages the same level of honesty, but he stops making excuses for their behavior. He shows up to family dinners that Uncle Jake and Grandma Helen host, sitting quietly while I talk about work or travel plans, never asking for money or making demands on my time. It's not the relationship I once wanted with him, but it's the relationship we're capable of having now. Tyler and I grow closer during this time, bonding over shared understanding of our family's dysfunction and shared commitment to breaking the cycles that damaged us. Madison remains distant, uncomfortable with the honesty that now characterizes our family interactions, but she stops posting passive-aggressive social media comments about ungrateful siblings. 3 years after my mother's diagnosis, I'm promoted to Director of Financial Operations at Morrison Industries. At 27, I'm the youngest director in the company's history, responsible for a team of 15 people and a budget that would have seemed incomprehensible to the girl who once worked at Target for $9 an hour. The celebration dinner that Uncle Jake and Grandma Helen throw includes my Morrison Industries colleagues, my college friends, and yes, my parents. It's not a perfect family reunion, but it's real in ways our old family gatherings never were. Nobody's pretending we're something we're not. Nobody's maintaining appearances that don't reflect reality. My father pulls me aside at the end of the evening, his eyes bright with what looks like genuine pride. "Your mother wanted me to tell you something," he says. "She said that you've become exactly the kind of woman she wishes she'd had the courage to be, and that she's grateful you didn't let us destroy that in you. Tell her I said thank you." I respond, meaning it in ways I couldn't have 5 years ago. That night, alone in my childhood bedroom at Grandma Helen's house, I think about the girl who stood in that airport 5 years ago, watching her family leave without her. She couldn't have known that her worst moment would become the catalyst for her best life. She couldn't have imagined that losing everything would teach her the difference between what she needed and what she'd been told to need. The journey from that airport to this moment hasn't been linear or easy. It's included therapy and tears, and hard conversations that left me drained and questioning whether healing was worth the effort. It's required me to develop boundaries I never knew I needed, to recognize patterns of behavior I'd been conditioned to accept, to choose my own well-being over other people's comfort again and again. But it's also given me something I never had before: the confidence that comes from knowing I can survive the loss of people who don't value me, the strength that comes from building a life based on my own merit, the peace that comes from knowing that my worth isn't determined by anyone's opinion of me. I'm not the daughter my parents wanted, the one who would sacrifice endlessly and smile while doing it. But I'm the woman I was meant to become: successful, independent, and surrounded by people who love me for who I am, rather than what I can provide. The airport abandonment that once felt like the end of everything was actually the beginning of everything. It forced me to confront truths I'd been avoiding, to build strength I didn't know I possessed, to discover that I was worth more than I'd ever been allowed to believe. Some families are born, others are chosen. And the family I've built for myself has given me something my birth family never could: the freedom to become exactly who I was meant to be, without apology and without compromise. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.